After over 20 years of working in the comic book industry, I've decided to embark on a new adventure. Join me as I explore the strange and unusual, doing everything from sharing my favorite books, comics, and horror movies, to traveling to abandoned spaces, horror-themed bars and restaurants, and all sorts of spooky spots. Welcome to Curious Haunts. I'm your host, Jeremy Haun. Horror connects us, and the horror community is a truly special place. Over the years, and especially on my travels for Curious Haunts, I found that we're a community that just truly loves the genre. It doesn't really matter if it's a movie, comic book, novel, or game. We want to check it out, especially if it's good. And sure, there's going to be a few real duds, but we'll probably check those out too. I'm grateful for the horror community, and even more grateful that I get to share my little part of it with you. So today on Curious Haunts, we're going to talk about a couple of my horror genre favorites. One is one of my absolute favorite comic book series of all time. I'm also going to take a look back at one of my favorite horror comedy films that has never looked better thanks to a new 4K release. We'll also take a little trip to Seattle, Washington, where I attend Emerald City Comic Con, and then, with the help of a few of my favorite people, explore the spooky, strange side of the Pacific Northwest's Emerald City. But first, let's have a drink. And welcome back to the Coroner Bar. This week, we're going to make something a little different. Usually, here on Curious Haunts, we're making my take on a classic cocktail. This week, we're going to be making one of my own signature drinks. It's basically a daiquiri, a Scotch Daquiri. It's kind of a perfect finishing move drink, a real treat. I'll occasionally ask for this drink when I'm out at a nice bar, things aren't busy, and I've had a great time chatting with the bartender. And generally, they're pretty surprised by the outcome. One bartender at one of my favorite spots in LA even said that I need to name it. And I do. But naming a drink is like naming a kid. It has to be just right. A daiquiri is another wonderfully simple 3-ingredient cocktail. It usually uses a nice, not too sweet rum. But for my unnamed little love, I use a peated Islay Scotch, preferably Ardbeg Wee Beastie. It's an affordable bottle. It can be found most places. And while I've had this drink with everything from Lefroy 10 to Lagavulin 16, I tend to like it with Wee Beastie the best. As Ardbeg likes to say, Wee Beastie is a monster of a dram. And it is, an absolute peat monster. Now look, peaty Scotch isn't for everyone. The peat-smoked barley in Scotch gives the whiskey a definite smoky campfire taste, which I love. And since peaty Scotch isn't for everyone, this drink is going to be a bit more complex than most that I make. So if this isn't the one for you, you can absolutely take this recipe and just go back to rum. That works too. Now, let's build a drink. We're going to start off with our cocktail shaker. Again, I highly recommend this Elevated Craft hybrid cocktail shaker. It's insulated, has a great built-in measure, and is big enough to make a nice drink for you and a couple of good friends. We're going to add 2 full ounces of Islay Scotch to our shaker. Then we're going to add an ounce of our freshly squeezed lime juice as well. Remember to do yourself a big favor and pre-squeeze and bottle your citrus beforehand. It's easier and it's just a bit less messy in the moment. After that, we're going to add 3/4 of an ounce of our demerara syrup. There we go. That's a good bit of sweet. Generally something similar like a whiskey sour is a little less sweet with just a 1/2 ounce. But this plays really well against the Scotch. And while it is a sweet drink, it's balanced pretty perfectly. And just to finish it off, we're going to add just 2 drops of saline. Just a reminder, that's a 4-to-1 ratio solution. 4 parts water to 1 part salt. And with that, we're going to go in and add a nice piece of ice. I'm going to take and crack this with a spoon, getting it everywhere. That happens. And then I'm going to pop our lid on and shake the hell out of it. You can generally tell when a drink is good and cold because the shaker gets cold and frosty. But these elevated craft shakers are insulated, so you can't feel it. I go for about 30 seconds or so. Now, we'll grab our glass. Yes, my love affair with the Nick and Nora glass continues. Of course, you can use a coupe. Those are lovely too. Another nice thing about this shaker is it has a built-in strainer. So we can pour directly through our fine mesh strainer to catch the extra ice shards and bits of lime pulp. Now that is just a beautiful color. Get the last of it there. And we'll just finish this with a nice lime twist. There we go. And there you have it. My, as of yet, unnamed Scotch Daquiri. Let me know if you try this one. I'm curious what you think. So now that we have a nice drink, let's head back to the auditorium and see what we got for you today.
I recently started reorganizing my library of books and movies. It's hitting critical mass, and it's become a bit necessary. There's so many ways to organize shelves. I've always been strictly alphabetical, numbers, then A to Z. Lately, though, I've been thinking about my system and other possibilities. My producer has her library color-coded, which looks amazing, but I'd never find anything that way. I've been thinking about subsections, still very much A to Z, but having things like all of my Criterion films or books by a certain author in one place. And while I'm organizing and figuring this out, as it happens, I keep finding things that I want to reread and rewatch, and things that I want to share with you. Speaking of things I want to share, digging through my library, I realized that for a comics creator, I actually haven't shared many American comics with you. So today, I want to talk about one of my all-time favorite comic series by one of my absolute favorite creators, Hellboy by Mike Mignola. I think I own Hellboy in more formats than any other comic. Every time a new edition comes out, I buy it again. Each new format, single issues, trade paperbacks, omnibus editions, artist editions, and more, is a chance to reread and just admire this masterpiece. One of my favorite editions of Hellboy is the Library Edition collection. The Hellboy Library Editions are a gorgeous, oversized 7-volume set, each containing 2 volumes of the original Hellboy series, along with a ton of short stories, some commentary, and one of my favorite parts, extensive sketchbook sections. As I was reorganizing my library, I picked up Volume 1 and sat down to read. It's easy to lose myself in the world of Hellboy. Mignola's obsession with monsters, folklore, and cosmic horror, it's all the things I love. Volume 1 of the Hellboy Library Edition features 2 of my favorite Hellboy stories, Seed of Destruction and Wake the Devil. Those 2 stories beautifully build out the world of Hellboy and the BPRD, and it only grows from there. I'm going to continue this reread of Hellboy. I also need to figure out where Volume 7 is wandered off to. I'm guessing one of my boys' rooms. You can find copies of most of the volumes of the Hellboy Library Edition around. But if you can't, or are looking for a more affordable option, I promise you there's an edition of this amazing story out there that fits your budget. Next up is the 35th anniversary edition of the cult classic 1988 science fiction horror comedy film, Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I've loved Killer Clowns from Outer Space since I first saw it on VHS sometime in 1989. I was 14 years old and well into obsessively watching every horror film I could get my hands on. And while I had and would continue to watch movies that were more terrifying and brutal than Killer Clowns from Outer Space, there was just something about the movie that got to me. Sure, clowns. But it was a full year before the ABC It miniseries and Tim Curry's Pennywise the Clown collectively traumatized pretty much every kid in the country. I've had a lot of fun sharing my favorite horror films with my sons. They're 15 and 20, and watch pretty much everything. So, when my 15-year-old Owen asked if I wanted to watch Killer Clowns from Outer Space, I was absolutely in. Now I'm a bit torn on this Scream Factory 35th anniversary release of Killer Clowns. It had the exact same special features as the previous DVD release, which were actually pretty extensive. But because I'm a horribly greedy horror nerd, with all these new special editions, I'm always hoping for just a bit more cool stuff. And look, lack of new special features aside, Killer Clowns has never looked better. Like a lot of movies from the 80s, before now, they didn't ever have great transfers. A lot of the scenes, especially ones with effects, were just too dark and grainy. Everything looks fantastic in this new edition, though, thanks to the new 4K scan from the original negative. And the clowns have never looked better or creepier. You can head over to shoutfactory.com to get yourself a copy of the 35th anniversary 4K edition of Killer Clowns from Outer Space. They even have a cool looking steelbook version, if you're into that. I never really got the allure of steelbook editions myself, but if you like them, they sometimes have really cool art and design. So, do your thing. And now, I'd like to invite you on another little trip, where I visit a series of spooky, strange, and delightful places that inspire and fascinate me. I eat, I drink, I seek out the weird and wonderful. And today, let's head to Seattle, Washington for Emerald City Comic Con and a look at the spookier side of one of my absolute favorite cities.
I've always loved the Pacific Northwest. There's something magic in the rain, the evergreen trees, the cold water of the Pacific Ocean, and Puget Sound. And even within the region, there's something extra special about Seattle. A perfect blend of natural beauty, magnificent architecture, outstanding varied food, and of course, a music culture that informed a decade and beyond. I set out early for Seattle and Emerald City Comic Con. A winter storm was rolling in, so we made the drive to Springfield, Missouri extra early to make sure we didn't hit any bad weather along the way. Luckily, we only got a light dusting that morning, and after a bit of extra de-icing the plane, I was off. The extra delay made my layover in Denver pretty uncomfortably tight, but luckily, after running at pretty much full tilt across the airport, I made my flight. And before long, I was in Seattle. After a rash of harsh weather in the Midwest, I expected, and if I'm being honest, for some nostalgic reason, looked forward to the Seattle rain. But it was an absolutely beautiful day in the Pacific Northwest, and that was just fine too. After the long ride into the city from SeaTac Airport, I arrived at the legendary Arctic Club Hotel. Built in 1914, the Arctic Club building was the home of the Arctic Club, a fraternal men's club organization formed by a group of successful veterans of the Klondike Gold Rush. The club's membership was dedicated to the further exploration of the Arctic wilderness, which is pretty cool. I made my way to my room on the top floor of the hotel and took in the amazing view of the city from the balcony. But I couldn't linger long, because I had some exploring of my own to do. So I made my way over to the University Heights area and stopped by Gargoyle Statuary. Open since 1992, Gargoyle Statuary is a great little shop dedicated to all things pagan, mystical, gothic, and yes, gargoyle. Absolutely packed floor to ceiling, the shop is especially dedicated to the work of regional artists and craftspersons, with everything from paintings to stickers to prints and t-shirts. And did I mention gargoyles? I picked up a couple of cool shirts, some stickers, and a few other odds and ends before realizing I hadn't eaten since sometime the day before. Travel gets like that. And honestly, sometimes I forget to eat. Luckily, there was a shawarma shop right across the street. A perfect bite for a curious traveler on the go. Food achieved, I walked over to the Seattle Dive Bar Institution, the Blue Moon Tavern, for a drink. Open since 1934 and having one of the best signs out there, the Blue Moon is the best kind of place for a late afternoon beer, or in my case, pour a scotch. The vibe is perfect, and while the place can get packed out late in the evening, I made it in early enough to sit at the bar, enjoy my drink, and take in the sticker-covered nostalgia-filled scenery. As much as I wanted to find a dark corner seat, order another round, and spend the afternoon riding away, I had one more stop to make before dinner. I love physical media. It's something I talk about all the time. Give me a library, bookstore, or comic shop, and I'm in absolute heaven. And even among places like that, Scarecrow Video in Seattle's University District is truly special. With nearly 150,000 titles in its library, the independently owned nonprofit video sales and rental store, Scarecrow Video, is Seattle's last video store. Their collection has, well, pretty much everything, from VHS to Laserdiscs, DVDs to special edition 4K Blu-ray releases. I walked down the aisles, just marveling at the dedication to collecting and sharing it all. Aisle after aisle, room after room, all organized by director, genre, and even subgenre. There were things that I have never even seen in print. Many of these titles have long been out of circulation, some titles so rare that they aren't even held in the Library of Congress. Scarecrow Video is exactly the kind of unwavering dedication to physical media that I love. Places like Scarecrow Video, they're important. There are plenty of ways to help the folks at Scarecrow Video protect this amazing collection. You can head over to their site, scarecrowvideo.org, and become a member, donate, or if you're in the area,
even volunteer. I did my part. I picked up a few Blu-ray editions for my own collection and some amazingly designed store merch. And on the way out, I stopped to look at the display of Scarecrow posters hanging in their window. What they had to say made me smile. Believe in building community through film. Believe in people power. Believe in physical media. Believe in Scarecrow Video. I believe in Scarecrow Video, and I'm glad I visited. I hope they're there for a long, long time. The sun was setting over Seattle on the ride back to the Arctic Club. Another reminder of the absolute beauty of this city. I walked back out on the balcony when I got back to my room a bit before heading to dinner. It had been a lovely day. I was glad to be in Seattle, and I was hungry. It's become a bit of a tradition for my buddy writer Mark Sable and I to hit Din Tai Fung in Seattle. Sure, it's a chain, with locations all down the West Coast and even into New York, but it's delicious. And a massive meal of dumplings and bao is a perfect way to end the first day in Seattle. Mark and I caught up. I enjoyed their signature old-fashioned, and we ate and ate. With a long weekend ahead of us, I made my way back to the Arctic Club for a good night's sleep. I was up bright and early the next morning for brunch with a few of my favorite comics retailer folks. We met at another of my favorite Seattle tradition spots, Tom Douglas' amazing brunch spot, Lola. Colette, Django, Erica, and I sat down, chatted about this exciting time in the comic book industry, enjoyed the food, and yes, the coffee. Black as night on a moonless night. I look forward to few things more than ordering Tom's big breakfast, the octopus hash. There have been plenty of reasons to consider a move to Seattle over the years, and that octopus hash breakfast, it's one of them. And of course, in spite of being absolutely full, we just had to get an order of their famous made-to-order donuts, with house-made blueberry jam and vanilla mascarpone. Full and happy, we made our way over to the convention hall for the official start of the show. Emerald City Comic Con has changed a lot over the years, since the early days when brothers Jim and George DeMonacos threw the first one-day event over at Quest Field back in 2003. Since then, ECCC has moved to the Washington State Convention Center and has grown to a full 4-day event. In spite of all the changes, the best thing about Emerald City is the people. Over the years, I've had the opportunity to meet folks, watch them start lives, have kids of their own, and now, all these years later, bring them along, celebrating their own likes and collections. I set up as an exhibitor at the show in Artist Alley probably 15 times over the past 22 years. This year, with my position as creative director of Ignition Press, the trip to ECCC was a little different. I was at the show to walk the show floor, talk to creators that we'd love to work with, and do a series of daily portfolio reviews for artists looking to make their way into the comics industry. And to find all of the spooky goodness this weird, wonderful city had to offer. I made my way through Artist Alley, purchased a few sketchbooks from amazingly talented creators, and then picked up portfolios for the next day's critique. I dropped my things off back at the Arctic Club, and then made my way to meet our friend, horror comics writer extraordinaire, Cullen Bunn. In Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez's audio commentary on Full Tilt Boogie, the documentary film about the making of From Dusk Till Dawn, Tarantino said something that always stuck with me. Basically, when you're young, you hang out with your friends every day. But as you get older, have jobs, responsibilities, and families, a lot changes. And in some ways, if you want to be able to see your friends, you got to figure out a way to work together. The comics industry can kind of be great like that. And now, with our work at Ignition Press, we even get to do it more often. So once again, Cullen and I set out on spooky cocktail adventures. This time, Cullen had an extra special surprise spot to share with me. I'll admit that as we walked up to the area, I was a little skeptical. But somewhere beneath Bezos' balls was an absolute unexpected wonder. So jabs and jokes aside, we walked into the Deep Dive cocktail bar and were absolutely blown away. Over the years, I've visited more than a few amazing bars, but Deep Dive felt like it was built just for me. Co-owners Jeremy Price and Chad Dale opened Deep Dive with the acclaimed chef Renee Erickson in the fall of 2018. With an epic nautical-themed cocktail menu and oddity-laden interior design by renowned artist and designer Curtis Steiner, I was in awe. And credit where credit's due, Cullen Bunn did good. We ordered a few tasty bites, enjoyed a couple of perfectly crafted cocktails, and chatted with the bar staff, and made friends with a squirrel. As much as we would have liked to stay at Deep Dive, Cullen and I had one more cocktail destination on our agenda for the evening, and it was time to move on. So we made our way over to one of my favorite Seattle spots, the Hidden Speakeasy Tiki Experience, Inside Passage. With fantastic design, including huge octopus tentacles on the ceiling, handcrafted by the bar's staff during the pandemic, delicious cocktails, and some of the most clever, exclusive mug designs out there, Inside Passage is always on my must-visit list when I'm in the city. Now, last time Cullen and I were together at a tiki bar, LA's famous Tonga Hut last month, I broke my cardinal tiki rule: only 2 drinks. But we're older and wiser now, and had a full weekend of convention goodness ahead of us, so in spite of the temptation, made the right choice and stopped with 2. We wrapped up the evening and I made my way back to the Arctic Club for some much-needed sleep. The next morning, I made my way to the convention center for my first round of portfolio reviews. I love nurturing new talent, and an important part of what we believe at Ignition Press is that helping creative voices find their path is the key to a strong, sustainable industry. After portfolio reviews, it was off to a creator lunch at one of my favorite Seattle sandwich institutions, Salumi. For over 20 years, the Batali family has brought amazingly handcrafted cured meats to Seattle using old world techniques. Over those 20 years, Salumi has changed and grown, and while a new generation has taken over the founder's legacy, and they've moved from the original little shop to a bigger, more accommodating space, the dedication to sandwich perfection remains the same. Salumi has been a bit of an Emerald City Comic Con tradition for comic creators over the years. Even though it's a bit of a walk or a short drive from the convention center, it's a great place to take lunch meetings, especially when you want to impress. While every single sandwich is utter perfection, and I'm always torn on what to order, this time I went with the mole salami sandwich. It's a classic, and it's just a bit less messy than my beloved porchetta. After lunch, we made our way back to the convention center. I spent a bit longer at Artist Alley, talking with creators, and then made my way back to the Arctic Club to get ready for a bit of spooky exploring before dinner. Before long, I was on my way to the Ballard Historical District to visit a pair of the city's most famous curiosity shops. And curiosity is what I'm all about. I arrived at Ballyhoo Curiosity Shop, walked in, and downstairs, past their collection of vintage photographs, cats, clowns, and grinning devils, and was immediately smitten. Opening its doors in 2015, Ballyhoo is a perfect combination of oddity shop, vintage market, and natural history museum. They have a bit of everything, from that perfect weird item for your shelf to vintage medical curiosities. And I wanted them all. I've talked about it before, but the term curated kind of gets a bad rap nowadays. Shops like Ballyhoo happen over time and are made with real love. The best ones, while absolutely knowing their stuff, also don't take themselves too seriously. And that is where the real magic happens. I picked up a few things at Ballyhoo and once again cursed my lack of luggage space, because no matter how I try, it's just impossible to fit a full-size skeleton and coffin into my carry-on. Things got a little annoying after leaving Ballyhoo. In spite of having a pretty great record with ride shares, I managed to find myself waiting for nearly 20 minutes for a ride, thanks to a dropped ride after a long wait. Thanks to that, and particularly bad traffic, I arrived at my next destination, Mudlark Oddities, right at closing. I don't like walking into a shop with less than a half an hour before closing. It just doesn't feel right. And to be honest, I want the time to really look. But as badly as I felt about it, Mudlark Oddities was one of the things on my list that I truly wanted to see. So, against my better judgment, I reached out, took fate by the hand, and walked inside. Just for a peek. The second I walked in and saw how perfect the collection was, I was a little heartbroken. About that time, the shop's owner, Jared, stepped around the corner. He was closing down, and I'm not sure he heard me come in. So, of course, there was this weird moment where my guilt for walking in right at closing met with the cross-section of him closing down the shop, but also wanting to be a good, welcoming shop owner. Needless to say, I apologized profusely and was moving to leave when Jared said that he still had a few things to do, and I was more than welcome to stay for a bit. I made sure that it was actually okay, and promised that as long as it didn't mess up his closing plans, I'd love to buy a thing or two. As I looked around, marveling at the shop, we got to talking about his collection. Like with a lot of oddity shops, it started with his own collection of curiosities, and grew from there. So, what is a mudlark? It's a bit of 18th century British slang, referring to someone who searches the mud of the River Thames, searching for valuables. I loved everything about Mudlark. As much as I wanted to stay, look over everything, and continue to chat, I needed to let Jared close up shop. So I made my purchases, said my thanks, and made my way back out into the night. It was time for dinner, and I was meeting a small group of creator friends. Jewel is one of my favorite spots in Seattle. The James Beard nominated restaurant offers up a modern take on a Korean steakhouse, and it's always delicious. I met my friends Aaron Campbell and Joe and Cheryl Eisma, and we sat down, talked comics, told stories, and had one amazing meal. Everything from the drinks to the kimchi trio and spicy rice cakes were just perfect. And there was no way we were making it out of there without sharing their signature galbi burger. It's the perfect finishing move to a fantastic small plates meal. Full, a little tipsy, and a lot happy, we made our way back downtown. I'm grateful to get to share a meal like that with such amazing, talented friends. What an evening of adventure. I was up early the next morning and made my way over to Pike Place Market to meet my pal, comics creator Tony Fleeks, for breakfast at another Seattle institution, Lowell's. Famous for their 3 floors of seating, world-class views of the Puget Sound and the Olympic Mountains, and the Eggs Benedicts. The coffee was hot, the Benedicts were absolutely tasty, and we were ready for another day at Emerald City Comic Con. On the way out of the market, I met a pair of whimsical cats and decided that maybe I just needed one more coffee. So we stopped off and grabbed another cup at one of my favorite Seattle spots, Victrola Roasters. It was Saturday at Emerald City Comic Con, and by the time we made our way to the show floor, things were already bumping. I did my portfolio reviews early, met some amazing up-and-coming creators, and then made my way back to the show floor. It was an extra special day on this Seattle excursion. Mike Tisserand, my friend and co-creator of my upcoming Ignition Press comic series, Murder Podcast, was in town for the day. And I convinced him to join me on my spooky adventures. Well, to be honest, it didn't take much convincing. Our new book, Murder Podcast, takes place in Seattle, so we took the chance to visit a few cool places that inspired the book. First up was a serendipitous little trip to the Georgetown steam plant for a little exploration and photo reference. Built between 1906 and 1907 on 18 acres of land along the Duwamish River, is a relic of a bygone era of hydroelectric power for Seattle. The Georgetown steam plant stopped generating electricity in 1953, but wasn't fully decommissioned until 1977. In recent years, thanks to the efforts of staff and volunteers, the Georgetown steam plant now functions as an accredited technology school. And on every second Saturday, the plant museum is open to guests from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Luckily, we just happened to be in Seattle on just one of those Saturdays. Without getting too spoilery, one of the set pieces of our book, Murder Podcast, takes place in a huge old plant in Seattle. Not this particular one, but the feel is the same. Mike and I made our way around the plant, taking pictures and video, found a few inspiring spots we'd definitely be adding to the comic, and just had a great time. As closing time approached, we even got an extra special story about a strange spectral sighting up on the 2nd level. I hope that maybe we get to see some wandering spirit, but alas, as usual, it wasn't in the cards. The Georgetown steam plant is exactly the kind of place I love to explore here on Curious Haunts. But having friends like Mike along on the adventures makes it just that much more fun. After we thanked the staff and said our goodbyes, we made our way back downtown to Pike Place Market's Post Alley, another key spot that we feature in Murder Podcast. It's a fantastic area, absolutely covered in paste-up graffiti, stickers, and around the corner, the iconic, if super gross, gum wall. After that, we grabbed another coffee and then made our way back to the Arctic Club to do a short interview video shoot about Murder Podcast in the club's boardroom. We sat down, chatted a bit about the project, and enjoyed a drink. With our work and adventuring done, it was time for a bit of dinner. So we met up once again with my pal, fellow Ignition Press creator Cullen Bunn, for a nice bite to eat. As you've probably seen, I'm always on the hunt for a good burger. Everywhere I go, I try and find at least one spot that is reportedly the best burger in town. And in Seattle, arguably the best burger is at the Guamanan Filipino restaurant, Family Friend. Now, Family Friend doesn't necessarily make it easy to find. There's no website, barely an Instagram presence, and that's just how the owner, Elmer Dula, wants it. We pulled up, got out, and walked up to the building to find the shades drawn, and the only indication of the restaurant was the tiny neon sign in the window. Unsure, some people might not even try the door, but we were horror comic creators, and we were hungry. We walked in and the place was absolutely packed. Now, Family Friend doesn't do reservations, So we put our name on the list and made our way down to El Quetzal, a nearby Mexican spot, for a drink. Famous for his margarita posts, Cullen knows a good margarita when he sees one, and El Quetzal didn't disappoint. We ordered a round, and Mike and I went all in on huge Corona Ritas, because why not? We had just finished our drinks when I got the text. It was go time, and our table at Family Friend was ready. We sat on the patio, which, in spite of it being a bit of a chilly evening, was just perfect, thanks to well-placed propane heaters, and maybe just a little warmth from that pre-dinner drink. Our server made some fantastic suggestions, and in spite of being there for the burger, we ordered a delicious corn soup and the estufo fried chicken plate. And yes, burgers all around. Somewhere in there, we figured out that our server was actually none other than Family Friend owner Elmer Dula. We chatted a bit about the restaurant, his philosophy about keeping it simple, the similarities between the comics and restaurant industries, and the joy of making things. It was a fantastic time. Great company and a damn good burger. We thanked Elmer for a wonderful evening and said our goodbyes. There was just one more day left of Emerald City Comic Con. It started early, and there were more portfolio reviews and meetings to do. Somewhere in there, I managed to get away and grab a coffee with my buddy, Mark Sable, at the Victrola Coffee Roastery flagship location on Pike Street. I've been walking up to Victrola for years, long before it expanded to its full 7 locations today. In a city known for its coffee, there are a lot of options. But Victrola has always been a favorite. Along the way to the shop, we passed the new Seattle location for Voodoo Donuts, and what may or may not have been an art installation outside. I always love taking the time to hang out and chat with Mark. We've worked together for years and been friends for longer. I had an amazing time at Emerald City Comic Con. After saying my goodbyes to everyone, I grabbed a bite to eat, a drink, and then turned in early. The next day, I was off on a whole other adventure. I woke up early and made my way to rent a car, and then head to the nearby town of North Bend, Washington, the home of David Lynch's television masterpiece, Twin Peaks. But that trip deserves its own special show. David Lynch and Twin Peaks meant too much to me. I promise we'll revisit that one in just a few weeks and give it the love it deserves. So let's fast forward to later that evening. Just before sunset, I made my way back to Seattle, to the Fremont area. I was meeting my buddy Shane White for dinner and just had enough time to do a bit more exploring. I made my way to Gasworks Park, over on the north shore of Lake Union. The Gasworks is a public park on the site of the former Seattle Gas Light Company. It, along with the Georgetown Steam Plant, were definite inspirations for a big part of Murder Podcast. So I wanted to visit the spot and get a good bit of photo reference for Mike. And even though the rusty works are surrounded by a huge chain link fence to keep people out and safe, if you pick your angles just right, there's plenty to see. After exploring the grounds and admiring the skyline just beyond Lake Union, I made my way to one of the most wonderfully whimsical Seattle sights, the Fremont Troll. The result of a 1990 art contest launched by the Fremont Arts Council, the 18-foot mixed media Fremont Troll was sculpted by 4 artists, Steve Bedaines, Will Martin, Donna Walter, and Ross Whitehead. I love large-scale whimsical sculptures like the Fremont Troll. I wish there were more of them nowadays. They're a reminder the world can and should be a magical place. I think that's something we need more of, especially right now. With a bit more time to spare before dinner, I made my way over to the Ballard area, wandering the shops, looking at books, records, and even stopped for a nice old-fashioned at Percy & Company. I wrapped up my last night in Seattle with a nice bit of sushi with my buddy Shane, and just to treat ourselves, a little salt and straw ice cream for good measure. It was a lovely last day in Seattle, with delightful exploring, good food, nice drinks, and wonderful company. I was up early the next morning, said my goodbyes to the Arctic Club, and then made my way back to the Seattle-Tacoma Airport. It probably comes as no surprise, but I'm not really an early morning person. But when I travel nowadays, I like to make sure I give myself plenty of time. No running like mad to my gate at the last second for me. So I arrived at the airport, sat and had a bit of breakfast, and wrote some horror comics goodness. Sometime late that evening, after yet another layover in Denver, I made my way back to Springfield, Missouri. Though, I can't say the same for my luggage. But that's okay. It arrived eventually. And just over an hour later, I arrived back home, exhausted. And I think someone missed me. Yeah, they definitely did. I love Seattle. It's a weird, wonderful, somewhat spooky place. It has amazing food, great drinks, a wealth of odd places, and some of the best people. It's one of my favorites. I'm glad I got to share it with you here on Curious Haunts. And there you have it, the Seattle excursion. I'd like to thank Cullen Bunn for making another appearance on Curious Haunts. I'd also like to thank my Murder Podcast co-creator, Mike Tisserand, for joining me to some of the places that inspired our upcoming comic book. Now, you might be wondering, what's next? Next up, we've got an extra special episode where I head to North Bend, Washington, and pay tribute to one of the greatest visionary voices of our time. After that, it's a Kansas City double feature, and then off to Chicago, and a whole lot more. It's going to be a fantastically spooky time, and I can't wait to share it with all of you. And just one more thing. Last episode, on Curious Haunts, I teased my latest comic project. Well, since then, we finally revealed the project and officially gone live with the campaign on Kickstarter. It's called Murder Podcast. I don't know about you, but almost everyone in my life has a favorite podcast. And for many of my friends, it's probably a true crime podcast. Now, what if your favorite podcast somehow turned you into a killer? A murderous, bloodthirsty, rampaging monster. That is Murder Podcast. It's a comic book for people who love horror, true crime podcast, and loving things. Sometimes to death. I'm truly excited and grateful to be bringing Murder Podcast to life with my friends and collaborators, artist Mike Tisserand, colorist Nick Filardi, and the lettering studio and world design. So if that sounds up your alley, click the link in the show notes and head over to Kickstarter and check it out. The campaign is running until May 15th. If you like Curious Haunts, I made Murder Podcast just for you. All right, so that's it for episode 5 of Curious Haunts. If you have a weird, wonderful, spooky place you feel like I should visit, please let me know. And if you'd like to join me on this curious and haunting journey, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you know a fellow traveler who, like you, is drawn to the strange and unusual, I'd appreciate you sharing Curious Haunts with them. I'll see you again in 2 weeks. Cheers.